Welcome to our deep dive all about Taylor Swift. We've got articles, her official website, even a museum dedicated to her.
It's really quite amazing just how much is out there.
Today, we're going to go beyond the headlines, like not just what she's done, but how she got to be so huge and why people connect with her story so strongly.
Yeah, it's a journey that goes way beyond just music. It's about business smarts, creative control, and yes, even politics.
Absolutely. And the sources we have are perfect for exploring all that. So we've got bio stuff from her website and Wikipedia info about her as a director. And then these really interesting articles about her political influence and her impact on culture.
Yeah, with these we can look at her career timeline, but also see the themes that keep popping up that make her the artist and person she is.
Okay, let's jump in. To get Taylor Swift, you got to start at the beginning. Picture this, a Christmas tree farm in Pennsylvania, family trips to the Jersey Shore, and a young Taylor singing at a local coffee shop.
Not your typical pop star story, but even those early gigs probably helped her learn to own the stage and connect with the crowd.
I can totally picture her charming those coffee shop people with her voice. It's wild to think those small-town roots might be why she connects so well with her fans now.
Oh, absolutely. That girl next door thing from her childhood is a big part of why people love her. It makes her relatable to so many.
But she wasn't just content with coffee shops. Our sources say by 11, she's off to Nashville with her demo tape, 12 learning guitar, 13 writing songs, and even modeling, driven even then.
And that drive sticks with her. Her website actually says she insisted on writing every song on Speak Now by herself.
Yeah.
After some people criticized her for working with others.
Wow, so she wanted to prove she could write. Sounds like having control over her art mattered to her from the start.
Exactly. And that need for control, you see it later when she fights to own her master recordings. Even as a teen, she had that independent spirit, wouldn't back down when it came to her art.
And it paid off. So we've got this driven girl with a guitar and a dream. Let's follow her music journey. It all starts with her first album when she was just 16. Remember? Teardrops on My Guitar. Pure country Taylor.
Even then, there were signs she wanted to be in charge. The Taylor Swift Museum says she helped produce that first album.
Huh, interesting. Shows how she always wanted to be involved in all parts of her work. Then came Fearless Still Country, but with even bigger hits. Love Story and You Belong With Me. Those crossed over to pop radio. Maybe a sign of where she was heading.
And her Wikipedia page points out that while she was finding success as a country star, she was already playing around with different sounds.
Oh, Speak Now was all her own songs, but you can hear some rock influences coming in.
Like she's testing the waters, pushing boundaries, but still keeping those country roots.
Then with Red, things get really interesting. Pop country, even some dubstep. I Knew You Were Trouble caught everyone off guard.
That album was a game changer. You can tell she's experimenting, stretching herself musically.
And then, boom, 1989, full-on pop star. No More Cowboy Boots, Hello High Heels, and stadium tours.
Bold move, totally ditching the country image. And obviously it worked.
The Taylor Swift Museum calls 1989 her first documented official pop album. And you can't argue with the success. Her biggest album stayed on the charts forever. Shake It Off, Blank Space, Bad Blood, iconic.
Yeah, she totally reinvented herself. But the amazing thing is she did it her way. Remember when she pulled her music from Spotify?
Oh, yeah. She took on Spotify, then Apple Music over how much artists get paid. That was huge.
Yeah, in 2014, she took all her music off Spotify, said their free service wasn't paying artists enough. Then she did the same to Apple Music when they weren't going to pay royalties during their free trial.
But it wasn't just about the money, was it?
No, it was about doing the right thing. She risked her own fame to stand up for what she believed in, to fight for artists. And she made those giant companies change their policies. Think about that. She changed the music industry all by herself.
That's power. And we can't forget about her fight to own her master recordings. The Taylor Swift Museum says it started when she was a teenager.
Yeah, that's been a long and public fight. She ended up losing the rights to her first 6 albums when her old label was sold. But she didn't quit. Decided to re-record those albums so she could own her work. There's that control thing again. She's not just talented. She's a smart businesswoman who knows how important it is to own your art.
It's inspiring. She takes on the big guys to fight for what's right. Okay, so we have this huge star who's also a business genius and a voice for artists. But there's more to her story, her political influence. This article from The Guardian says even people who supported Trump told her to stay out of politics. Said everyone thought she could change the outcome of an election.
That's a fascinating situation. She's got millions of fans, especially young women. It gives her a huge voice.
Wow, talk about pressure. Can she really sway voters? Is she really that influential?
Hard to say. Celebrities don't always have that much impact, and her political views might turn some fans away. It's a tough line to walk.
So is she a political powerhouse or just another celebrity trying to use their fame?
I think it's more complicated than that. She wants to use her voice for good, but it's risky in today's world. It's an interesting part of her story that we'll come back to. But for now, let's switch gears and talk about her as a visual storyteller. Because she doesn't just sing and write, she directs too.
You're right. Her website lists a ton of music videos she's directed, like The Man, where she literally transforms herself to make a point about gender roles in the industry.
Perfect example of how she uses visuals to make her music hit harder. It's not just the song. It's the look, the story, the feeling it creates. Think about All Too Well, this short film. It's basically a mini-movie that adds so much more meaning to that song.
And then there's her acting voice work and movies, The Lorax Valentine's Day and The Giver. Is this just another creative outlet, or is she working towards something bigger, like a full-on acting career?
Who knows? But she clearly loves trying new things, exploring different creative paths. That's one of the things that keeps people guessing and makes her career so interesting. She's not one to stay in her lane.
So from Christmas tree farms to stadium tours, from country darling to pop queen, Taylor Swift has done it all. And we've only covered the first 10 years. There's so much more to talk about.
Oh yeah. What comes next is even more incredible. Stay with us as we keep diving deep and explore how things in 2020 and after changed her music, her activism, and her impact on pop culture.
Welcome back to our deep dive into all things Taylor Swift. Last time we left off, she just released 1989, that huge pop album, and she was starting to show what she could do as a businesswoman and advocate for artists.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see how those things all connect as we get into this next phase of her career.
Right. This is where she really starts pushing back against the way things are usually done in the music industry and making her own way very publicly.
You know, Love Her in 2019. The Taylor Swift Museum says that was the first album she actually owned.
Huge moment for her. Remember that fight to get ownership of her masters? She finally had complete control right from the start. Must have felt amazing.
Oh, absolutely. And she used that creative freedom. The Taylor Swift Museum says all 18 songs from Love Her made it onto the Billboard Hot 100 chart in the same week.
Wow, that's insane. Shows just how massive her fan base is and how much they love her music. But even with all the success, this time wasn't easy. Her Wikipedia page talks about that big public fight with her old manager, Scooter Braun, and her old label, Big Machine, all over the rights to her masters.
That was a defining moment for her. She was so open about how unfair it felt and used her platform to call out what she saw as a betrayal.
Yeah, it must have been so frustrating to lose control of those early albums after working so hard for artists to have those rights.
Right, and that just made her even more determined to own her work and tell her own story. It's that theme again, that fierce independence that's been there her whole career. It led her to do something no one had done before. Re-record her entire back catalog.
That was bold. A lot of artists would have just moved on and made new music, but she had to reclaim those albums.
Exactly. And while she was doing all that, she still kept pushing herself creatively. She was Bombalurina in the movie Cats.
Ah, yes, Cats. I think it's safe to say that movie wasn't a hit with the critics.
True. But it shows she's willing to try new things, step outside her comfort zone, even if it doesn't always work out perfectly. Plus, don't forget she co-wrote and sang a new song for the film Beautiful Ghosts. Got her a Golden Globe nomination.
Even in a not-so-great movie, her talent shines through. And then there was the Netflix documentary Miss Americana, premiered at Sundance in 2020.
That movie gave fans a look behind the curtain. Her political awakening, her struggles with body image, the pressure of being famous, it felt real, a real portrait of a global superstar dealing with tough stuff.
It was a vulnerable side of Taylor we hadn't really seen before. And speaking of her political awakening, Miss Americana featured the song Only the Young, which she wrote after the 2018 election.
Yeah, that song became like an anthem for young voters, encouraging them to get involved in politics. It was clear she wasn't afraid to use her voice to support causes she cared about anymore.
She really found her voice during this time, politically and creatively. So by the end of 2020, Taylor Swift had done more than most artists could ever dream of. Multi-platinum artist, songwriter, director, actress, political activist. What else could she possibly do?
But just when you thought she might slow down, the pandemic hit. The world shut down, and Taylor Swift went into overdrive. I mean, think about it. In 2020, she surprised everyone with not one, but two new albums, Folklore and Evermore.
Total shock, no hype, no big announcements, just pure music out of nowhere.
And the music itself was different, too. Folklore and Evermore had that more introspective indie folk sound. showed a whole new level of depth and maturity in her songwriting.
Yeah, Folklore especially really connected with people, won Album of the Year at the Grammys, making her the first woman to win that award 3 times. And she did all this during a global pandemic when everything was so uncertain.
Exactly. Folklore's success wasn't just because the music was amazing, which it was the timing, too. It felt like the album everyone needed right then.
It was an escape, a comfort, a reminder that we were all in this together.
Yeah, and then just 5 months later, she releases Evermore, like a companion piece to Folklore. Same indie folk sound, but exploring even darker, more emotional themes.
Those albums really showed how much she'd grown as a songwriter and storyteller. The stories are so rich and detailed, like she was taking us on a journey with each song.
And while she's putting out all this new music, she's also busy re-recording those early albums, starting with Fearless, Taylor's version, and Red, Taylor's version, in 2021.
That was a huge project, but it obviously meant a lot to her. She wanted to own those early songs, those early stories, and she was going to make it happen.
Yeah, and she didn't just re-record them note for note. She added new songs from the vault, giving fans even more music. Brilliant move, both for business and for her art.
It was a way to reclaim her past and move forward at the same time. And during all this, she's directing her own music videos too, including that 15-minute masterpiece, All Too Well, the short film.
Oh yeah, that film was based on the 10-minute version of All Too Well from Red, Taylor's version. Huge success, critics loved it, fans loved it, won awards, including a Grammy for Best Music Video. Really showed her talent as a director, how she can create something visually beautiful and emotionally powerful.
I remember watching it and thinking, wow, this is more than just a music video. This is art.
It really was. You could feel how much she loves filmmaking in every shot.
So by the end of 2021, Taylor Swift was this unstoppable force, putting out music like crazy, directing films, re-recording her old albums, and somehow staying connected to her fans through it all.
It was like a creative explosion.
Yeah.
A testament to how much she wants to own her art, control her story, and connect with her fans on a deeper level.
And get this, she was just getting started. In 2022 and 2023, even more music, even more broken records. And finally, she announces a massive stadium tour, the Eras Tour.
Now, that tour is something else, but I think we need to save that for the last part of our deep dive.
Yeah. You're right. Let's take a quick break. Then we'll come back and talk about the Eras Tour, her newest album, and what the future holds for this amazing artist. And we're back for the final part of our Taylor Swift deep dive. We left off with the Eras Tour.
This tour is really something else, isn't it? It's like a celebration of her whole career, from those first country songs to the latest pop hits and everything in between.
When she announced the tour back in 2022, fans went nuts. Tickets sold out instantly, websites crashed, it was chaos.
It really shows how strongly she connects with her fans. They've been with her through every change, every step of the way. And they were so ready to celebrate it all with her.
Yeah, it became this huge cultural event. People were dressing up in outfits inspired by her albums, making these elaborate friendship bracelets to trade at the shows. It was incredible.
Each show was like one giant sing-along. Really highlights her ability to create a sense of community, to bring people together through her music.
And you know what's crazy? In the middle of all that tour craziness, she drops a brand new album. Midnight's released in October 2022.
Seriously, this woman does not sleep.
I know, right? Unstoppable. Midnight's debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200, sold over 1 million copies in its first week. That's her 5th album to that, making her the first artist ever to have 5 albums sell 1 million copies in their first week.
She also broke the record for the most streams of an album in a single day on Spotify.
And speaking of breaking records, Midnight's was her 11th album to hit #1 on the Billboard 200, giving her the most #1 albums of any female artist.
Yeah, she beat Barbra Streisand's record of 11. That record had stood for decades. That's a huge accomplishment. And get this, all 10 songs from Midnight's charted in the top 10 of the Billboard Hot 100 at the same time. Another record.
It's mind-blowing, but she didn't stop there. She never does. In 2023, she released 2 more re-recorded albums, Speak Now, Taylor's version, and 1989, Taylor's version.
Both were huge hits, topped the charts. Showed once again that she's in control of her story.
The release of Speak Now, Taylor's version, was really important. It made her the woman with the most #1 albums on the Billboard 200. 12 chart-topping albums. She also became the first living artist to have 4 albums in the Billboard 200's top 10 at the same time.
She was dominating. But it wasn't just about the charts. Remember all those music videos she directed? Well, she won a Grammy for Best Music Video for All Too Well, the short film, in 2023.
Yeah, that Grammy win solidified her as a filmmaker, not just a musician. And just when we thought maybe she'd take a break, she surprised us again. A brand new album, The Tortured Poets Department, in October 2023.
Her 12th studio album, and of course another success. It was her 6th album to sell 1 million copies in a week in the US and had a #1 single, Is It Over Now?
It's amazing how she keeps raising the bar, pushing herself creatively with each project.
She's always collaborating, trying new things, pushing the boundaries of what's possible in music.
And through it all, she stays connected to her fans, who love her for being real and dedicated to her art.
It's a rare mixed talent drive and that genuine connection with her audience.
So here we are in 2024, and Taylor Swift is still at the top. The Eras Tour is selling out stadiums worldwide. And she was just named Time Magazine's Person of the Year, the first entertainer to be named individually. What's next for her? Honestly, who knows?
It's impossible to say what someone as creative and driven as her will do next. But one thing's for sure, she'll keep us guessing.
I agree completely. What a journey this deep dive has been. From her childhood on a Christmas tree farm to global icon. Quite a ride.
She's an artist who breaks the mold, changed the music industry and what it means to be a pop star today.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Taylor Swift. It's been so interesting to explore her story and her impact on music and culture. We've learned so much.
Definitely. And her story's still being written. What are your biggest takeaways? What really stood out to you?
That's a great question. There's so much to think about. Her growth as an artist, her business smarts, her willingness to fight for what she believes in, that strong bond with her fans. It makes you wonder, is Taylor Swift just a talented musician riding the wave of fame? Or is she a cultural force changing the future of entertainment?
Now that's something to think about.
Yeah.
And something we'll all be watching as her career continues. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time.